Vasudevaya.
Janmadyasya yato nibiyad itaratas charteso vigyaswarat.
Janmadyasya yatam vayaritartaschatirishvavigyasvarat.
Tene brahma hridaya adhikavaye muyanti atsurayaha.
Tenne brahmarudaya adhikavaye mojantiya suraya.
Tejo varimidam yata vinimayo yatra trisargo misha.
Tejo varimridam jata vinimayo jatra trisargo mrisya.
Damna svena sada nirasta kuhakam satyam param dhimahi.
Dhamna svena sada nirasta kuhakam satyam param dhimahi.
O my Lord, Shri Krishna, son of Vasudeva.
O my Lord, Shri Krishna, son of Vasudeva.
O all-pervading personality of Godhead.
O all-pervading personality of Godhead.
I offer my respectful obeisance unto you.
I offer my respectful obeisance unto you.
I meditate upon Lord Shri Krishna because he is the absolute truth.
I meditate upon Lord Shri Krishna because he is the absolute truth.
And the primeval cause of all causes.
And the primeval cause of all causes.
Of the creation, sustenance, and destruction of the manifested universe.
Of the creation, sustenance, and destruction of the manifested universe.
He is directly and indirectly conscious of all manifestations.
He is directly and indirectly conscious of all manifestations.
And he's independent because there's no other cause beyond him.
And he is independent because there's no other cause beyond him.
It is he only who first imparted the Vedic knowledge unto the heart of Brahmaji.
It is the only who first imparted the Vedic knowledge unto the heart
the
of
original
Brahmaji,
living being.
the original living being.
By him, even the great sages and demigods are placed into illusion.
By him, even the great sages and demigods are placed into illusion.
As one is illusioned by the illusory representations.
As one is bewildered by the illusory representations
of water seen on fire or land seen on water.
Of the water seen on fire, land, sea, and water.
Only because of him do the material universes.
Only because of him do the material universes.
Temporarily manifested by the reactions of the three modes of nature.
Temporarily manifested by the reaction of the three modes of nature.
Appear factual, although they are unreal.
Appear factual, although they are unreal.
I therefore meditate upon him, Lord Shri Krishna.
I therefore meditate upon him, Lord Shri Krishna.
Who is eternally existent in the transcendental abode.
Who is eternally existent in the transcendental abode.
Which is forever free from the illusory representations of the material world.
Which is forever free from the illusory representation of the material world.
I meditate upon him, for he is the absolute truth.
I meditate upon him, for he is the absolute truth.
Dharma projita kaitavotra.
Dharma Prajita Kaitavotra
Paramo nirmatsranam satam.
Paramo nirmatsranam
Vedyam vastavam atra vastu.
Vedyam vastavam astra vastu.
Shivadam tapa trayon mulanam.
Shivadam tapo trayomulanam.
Srimad Bhagavate Mahamuni krite.
Srimad Bhagavate Mahamuni
Kim vapur ishvaraha.
Kim vapur ishvaraha.
Sadyo hridi avarudyate tra.
Sadyo hridi avarudyate tra.
Priti bihi sususubhistakshana.
Priti bihi sususubhistakshana.
Completely rejecting all religious activities which are materially motivated.
Completely rejecting all religious activities materially motivated.
This Bhagavata Purana propounds the highest truth.
This Bhagavad Purana propounds the highest truth.
Which is understandable by those devotees who are fully pure in heart.
Which is understandable by those devotees fully pure in the heart.
The highest truth is reality distinguished from illusion for the welfare of all.
The reality distinguished from illusion for the welfare of all.
Such truth uproots the threefold miseries.
Such a truth uproots the threefold miseries.
This beautiful Bhagavatam compiled by the great sage Vyasadeva in his maturity.
This beautiful Bhagavatam compiled by the great sage Vyasadeva in his maturity.
Is sufficient in itself for God realization.
Is sufficient in itself for God realization.
What is the need of any other scripture?
What is the need of the other scriptures?
As soon as one attentively and submissively hears the message of Bhagavatam.
As soon as one attentively and submissively hears the message
by
of
this culture of knowledge.
By this culture of
the
knowledge.
Supreme Lord is established within his heart.
The Supreme Lord is established within his heart.
Nigama kalpataro galitam phalam.
Nigama kalpataro galitam phalam.
Sukhamukad amrita dravya samyatam.
Sukhamukad amrita dravya samyatam.
Pibata bhagavatam rasam alayam.
Pibata bhagavatam rasam alayam.
Muhur aho rasika bhuvibhavakaha.
Muhur aho rasika bhuvibhavakaha.
O expert and thoughtful men, relish Srimad Bhagavatam.
O expert and thoughtful men, relish Srimad Bhagavatam.
The mature fruit of the desire to Vedic literature.
The mature fruit of the desire to the Vedic literature.
It emanated from the lips of Sri Sukadeva Goswami.
It emanated from the lips of Sri Sukadeva Goswami.
Therefore, this fruit has become even more tasteful.
Therefore, this fruit has become even more tasteful.
Although its nectarian juice was already relishable for all.
Although its nectarian juice was already relishable for all.
Including liberated souls.
Including liberated souls.
Shinvatam Swakata Krishna.
Shinvatam Swakata Krishna.
Punya Shravana Kirtana.
Punya Shravana Kirtana.
Hridyantaksto hi Bhadrani.
Vidyantastu hiya bhadrane.
vidunoti suhitsatam.
Vidunoti suritsatam.
To hear about Krishna from Vedic literatures,
To hear about Krishna from the Vedic
or to hear
literature,
from him directly through the Bhagavad Gita,
or to hear from it directly through the Bhagavad
is
Gita.
itself righteous activity.
It is self-righteous
And
activity.
for one who hears about Krishna,
And for who hears about
Lord
Krishna,
Krishna is dwelling in everyone's heart,
Lord Krishna is dwelling within
acts
everyone's
as a
heart,
best-wishing friend,
acts as the best
and
wishing
beautifies the devotee who constantly engages in hearing of
friend, and
him.
purify the body who constantly engaged in hearing from him.
Nasta presu badresu
Nasta prayeshva bhadreshu
nityam bhagavata sevaya
nityam bhagavata sevaya
bhagavati uttamasloke
bhagavati uttama shloke
bhaktir bhavati naistiki.
bhakti bhavati nastiki.
In this way, a devotee naturally develops his dormant transcendental knowledge.
In this way, the devotee naturally develops his dormant transcendental
As he hears more about Krishna from the Bhagavatam
as he hears more about Krishna from the Bhagavatam
and from the devotees,
and from the
he
devotee,
becomes fixed in the devotional service of the Lord.
he becomes fixed in the devotional service of the Lord.
Tadarajastamo bhava
Tadarajastamo bhava
kamalobhadayasche
kamalobhadayascha
shita etayaranavidam
Chaitaitaranavidam
stitvam sattve prasidhati.
Siddham Sadve Prasidati.
By development of devotional
By
service,
development of devotional service,
one becomes freed from the modes of passion and ignorance,
one becomes free from the modes of passion and ignorance.
and thus material lust and avarice are diminished.
And his material lust and avarice are
Evam
diminished.
prasanna manaso
Evam prasanna manasa
bhagavat bhakti yogataha
Bhagavat Bhakti Yoga
bhagavat tattva vijnanam
Bhagavat Tattva Vijnana
mukta sangasya jayate.
Mukta Sangha
When these
Sajayate.
impurities are wiped away,
When these impurities are wiped
the
away,
candidate remains steady in his position of pure goodness,
the candidate remains steady in position of pure
becomes
goodness,
enlivened by devotional service,
becomes enlivened by devotional service,
and understands the science of God perfectly.
and understands the science of God perfectly.
Vidyate hridaya grantis,
Vidyate Hridaya Granthis,
chidyante sarvasamsaya,
Chidyante Sarva Samsaya,
siyante chasya karmani,
Jyante Chasya Karmani,
drista evat manishware.
Dusta Evadmaneshwari.
Thus, bhakti yoga severs the hard knot of material
That's
affection
the Bhakti Yoga serves the heart of material
and enables one to come at once to the stage of samsayam samagram,
and enable one to come at once to the stage of Samshan from
understanding of the supreme absolute truth personality of Godhead.
understanding this from absolute true personality of God.
Therefore, only by hearing from Krishna or from his devotee in Krishna consciousness
Therefore, only by hearing from Krishna, from his devotee in Krishna consciousness,
can one understand the science of God perfectly.
can one understand the science of Krishna.
I'm sorry, can one understand the science of Krishna. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 2, Text 32. Ete shrutite nripa veda gite
Ete sritite nripa veda gite,
tvaya vipriste cha sanatane cha
tvaya vipriste cha sanatani cha,
yevai pura brahmana ahatusta
yeve pura brahmana atusta,
aradhito bhagavan vasudeva.
aradhito bhagavan vasudeva.
Translation by Srila Prabhupada. Your Majesty, Maharaj Parikshit, know that all that I have described in reply to your proper inquiry is just according to the version of the Vedas, and it is eternal truth. This was described personally by Lord Krishna unto Brahma, with whom the Lord was satisfied upon being properly worshipped. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. The two different ways of reaching this spiritual sky and thereby getting emancipation from all material bondage, namely either the direct process of reaching the kingdom of God or the gradual process through the other higher planets of the universe, are set forth exactly according to the version of the Vedas. The Vedas versions in this connection are Yada Sarve Pramuchyante Kamayesya Hridi Shritaha and Ata Martyo Mrityo Bhavati Atra Brahma Samasnute. So that's Brihad Aranyakya Upanishad 4.4.7 and Te Ruchir Abhisambhavanti Brihad Aranyakya Upanishad 6.2.15. Those who are free from all material desires which are diseases of the heart, are able to conquer death and enter the kingdom of God through the archie planets. These Vedic versions corroborate the version of the Srimad Bhagvatam, and the latter is further confirmed by Sukadeva Goswami, who affirms that the truth was disclosed by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Sri Krishna, Vasudeva, to Brahma, the first authority on the Vedas. The disciplic succession holds that the Vedas are uttered by Lord Krishna to Brahma, by Brahma to Narada, and by Narada to Vyasadeva, and then by Vyasadeva to Sukadeva Goswami, and so on. So there is no difference between the versions of all the authorities. The truth is eternal, and as such, there cannot be any new opinion about the truth. That is the way of knowing the knowledge contained in the Vedas. It is not a thing to be understood by one's erudite scholarship or by fashionable interpretations of mundane scholars. There is nothing to be added and nothing to be subtracted, because the truth is the truth. One has to accept, after all, some authority. The modern scientists are also authorities for the common man for some scientific truths. The common man follows the version of the scientist. This means that the common man follows the authority. The Vedic knowledge is also received in that way. The common man cannot argue about what is beyond the sky or beyond the universe. He must accept the versions of the Vedas as they are understood by the authorized disciplic succession. In the Bhagavad Gita also, the same process of understanding the Gita is stated in the 4th chapter. If one does not follow the authoritative version of the Acharyas, he will vainly search after the truth mentioned in the Vedas. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So this is called a priori knowledge. It is a posteriori and a priori knowledge. So a priori knowledge is before the fact, and a posteriori knowledge is after the fact. There's two ways of knowing the facts. So the Vedas are a priori knowledge. They, before the fact, they're already predicting what's going to happen in a flawless manner. And mundane knowledge by the speculators are after the fact. Let's not say that. A posteriori is after something happens, then you understand it. And a priori means before it happens, you're given knowledge of it. So therefore, the 24 incarnations of Krishna are explained before they actually happened. And so many other things are explained before they actually happen. Or things that are unseen are explained by the Vedas. So if we don't accept this, then then we have our own interpretations of phenomena based on speculation, then we're in a state of illusion. And that's what's happening today. Everybody's in a state of illusion today because they're not accepting the Vedic a priori and a posteriori knowledge. They're speculating. That's what the scientists do. That's what the philosophers do. They speculate. So, therefore, there's no new truth to be discovered. This is a very important point. Where it says here, the truth is eternal, and as such, there cannot be any new opinion about the truth. There you are. That's the fact. And to understand that is the beginning of spiritual life. because we learn not by studying, we learn by accepting an authority, and then whatever the authority says, we accept. So for the modern people today, their authorities are scientists and sometimes philosophers. They accept more or less what they say, but they are speculators. Our authority in Krishna consciousness is Krishna, the supreme absolute truth personality of Godhead. So you can, one time Prabhupada was explaining to this Professor Kotovsky in Russia, when he was invited there by this professor, and he explained to him, you guys accept Marx and maybe Lenin as your authorities, as your authority. And we accept Krishna as our authority. Now, let us compare your authority with our authority. Your authority is born, gets old, gets sick, and dies. Our authority is eternal. Your authority gets old and gets sick. Our authority never gets sick and never gets old. So, which one do you think is the better authority? See, that was a brilliant explanation by Prabhupada. Of course, Kotovsky didn't accept it because he's an illusion. He thinks that people who eat, drink, smoke, and have illicit sex are authorities. And they also claim that they'll find the solution to death, but then they die before they found the solution. So yeah, let's compare the authorities. Like, for example, coming back to a previous point that we've been studying, and what is that? How to prove God exists, or what are the unique qualities of God? So, first one must know the qualities of God and that differentiate him from all other living entities. So number one, God or Krishna is the source of everything material and spiritual. That's Bhagavad Gita 10.8. And number two, God is the prime eternal of all eternal beings. He is distinguished by being the maintainer of all the living entities. That's Bhagavad Gita 2.12 in the purport. It's a quote of the Katha Upanishad. And number three, Krishna knows what is happening in all living entities. That's Bhagavad Gita 13.23. And then number four, Krishna is transcendental to the modes of material nature. It's Bhagavad Gita 7.12. And number five, Krishna is not affected by work. He is not attached to the fruits of work. He is not entangled by the reactions of work. That is the third chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Write that down. I didn't write that one down. That is third chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Verse number 3:22. Let me write that down. That's why it's good to go over these things, because sometimes we miss something. 3.22 Bhagavad Gita. Okay, and then number 6, Krishna possesses mutually contradictory qualities. Bhagavad Gita 13.14 to 17. And it's also Brahma Samhita. I have to write that down. And number 7, Krishna possesses all opulences. That's Bhagavad Gita 10.1. He's Sad Aishwarya Purnam. And number 8, Krishna possesses all yoga siddhis, Anima, Lagima, and so forth. And that's also in the Bhagavad Gita. One second. see what that is. Actually, that's Srimad Bhagvatam 2.2.22. 2.2. That's the chapter in which we're reading right now. And then, and also Bhagavad Gita 10. That's 2.2.22. And then, point 9, Krishna is the cause of all causes without beginning or end. He's the original person. Oh, again, that's Bhagavad Gita 10.8. And that's Srimad Bhagavat, that's Brahma Samhita, 5.1. And then number 10, Krishna mystifies all living entities, including Brahma, Shiva, and Durga. Okay, I have to write that one down. That's Srimad Bhagavatam. I have to write that one down. And then number 11, Krishna controls Kala, the time factor, Swabhava, one's own nature, by association, Samskara, purification, Kama, desire, and Karma, fruit of activity, and Gunas, the three modes of material nature. I have to write that down. That's, again, Srimad Bhagavatam. And then point number 12, the supreme truth is self-sufficient, cognizant, and free from illusion of relativity. That's Srimad Bhagavatam 1.2.11. And, okay, so in the relative world, the knower is different than the known, but in the absolute truth, both the knower and the known are of the same, are one and the same thing. So that's Srimad Bhagavatam again, 1.2.11. In the relative world, the knower is the living spirit or superior energy, whereas the known is inert matter or inferior energy. Therefore, there is a duality of inferior and superior energy, whereas in the absolute realm, Krishna's realm, both the knower and the known are of the same superior energy. So that also is Srimad Bhagavatam 1.2.11. So these are some of the unique qualities of Krishna that are necessary for us to know in order to be able to debunk all these phony incarnations of God. And there's more points too. So that's one of our projects, is completing all those points. Okay, so the another main point in this purport is what Prabhupada says, that there are diseases of the heart. This is explained in the 15th chapter, 20th verse, and in the 3rd chapter also. So let's go with 15th chapter, 20th verse. First, where Prabhupada is explaining what are the diseases of the heart, or in the 15th chapter, 20th verse, he calls them the weaknesses of the heart. And Prabhupada says, first of all, while one is performing devotional service in the association of pure devotees in full Krishna consciousness, there are certain things which require to be vanquished altogether. It's weaknesses, okay, 15:20. The most important thing one has to surmount is weakness of the heart. The first fall down is caused by the desire to lord it over material nature. So that's the first weakness of the heart, the desire to overlord or to control the material nature. The desire to lord it over material nature. Thus, one gives up transcendental loving service to the Supreme Lord. Yeah, let's say someone says, I think I should start a business to support Krishna consciousness. So they start a business, and after a little while, when they have some success and they're getting really entangled, at one point, little by little, they diminish their service in Krishna consciousness, and finally they stop it completely, and they're just completely engaged in making money. This happens a lot. This happened as a general thing in Krishna consciousness also, when in the past, the devotees were simply, like I remember when we began Sankirtan, we didn't have any books. So we just went out with a little basket and put a few coins in it, and we'd go like this with the basket in front of people and say, please give a donation while the devotees were chanting. And people would give something, very little. So then when we got our first magazine, we didn't even have a book. Then we went out and tried to offer a magazine for free and then ask for a donation. And then we got books, and we would we'd hand the book to the people so they'd actually hold it, and we'd talk about it, and we'd ask for a donation. And if they didn't want to give it, we'd take it back and then give them a pamphlet or something. And then we would go out and offer incense to people, and if they took, and for free, like a stick of incense, because that's when we started making incense. And then we would say, well, and also there's this book, about, do you like yoga? And we'd say, well, I don't know much about it. Well, why don't you take this book? And then, so the incense helped us to sell the book. Right? And then after that, one over-intelligent person started making records of, him singing kirtan. It was really, and using what you call techno music behind it, right? Techno music means music with electronic instruments rather than real instruments, right? So that began a new idea in Sankirtan, that was, there's such a thing as book points. So if you sell so many, a certain book, like there was a certain numbering system for, small books and BTG magazine, and then bigger books, and then Srimad Bhagvatam books and things like that. So when that numbering system came up, everyone was into book points. So at that point, and then there was also Lakshmi points. So they started with book points, and then they went to Lakshmi points. So what was the Lakshmi point? That was when they started just selling the records and not selling a book. So they would get Lakshmi points, and the Lakshmi points would be transformed into book points, right? And at that point, so people just started distributing records, records that were basically getting to be more and more nonsense, so that the people would take them. And then with the money that they would get, they would transform that into book points. Right. So you see, it was a gradual degradation of the purity of Sankirtan. And then what happened? Some devotees who got married, they decided just to do records, not even do books, or records, or any paraphernalia at all, jewelry, records, whatever, and not even donate the money to the temple. They would just keep it for their maintenance. So, and then they got into hats, and they got into all kinds of different things, right? And they just stopped giving money to the temple. They were using it for their own, and they would call it Sankirtan. So sometimes they would give a free book. the ones that are a little bit more felt guilty, they would give some free book, a small book like Easy Journey or the cookbook or something like that. So you see there's this gradual degradation of the purity of Sankirtan. So this is a weakness of the heart. The first fall down is caused by the desire to lord it over material nature, and thus one gives up the transcendental loving service to the Supreme Lord, the more one becomes entangled. And thus, and the second weakness of the heart is that as one increases the propensity to lord it over material nature, he becomes attached to matter and the possession of matter. So this is 15th chapter, 20th verse. So the problems of material existence are due to these weaknesses of the heart. So later on in this purport today, he calls it diseases of the heart. But it's the same thing. The problems of material existence are due to these weaknesses of the heart. Okay, so this is also explained in 3rd chapter, 43rd verse of Bhagavad Gita. Let's take a look at that. 3rd chapter, 43rd verse. And it says, this 3rd chapter of the Bhagavad Gita is conclusively directive to Krishna consciousness by knowing oneself as the eternal servitor of the Supreme Personality of Godhead without considering impersonal voidness as the ultimate end. In the material existence of life, one is certainly influenced by propensities for lust and desire for dominating the resources of material nature. Desire for overlording and for sense gratification is the greatest enemy of the conditioned soul. So that's the point. That's the first fall down, the desire to overlord, to control material nature for sense gratification. Just like someone might say, well, I want to make some money. How can I do that? Well, maybe I'll buy and sell used cars. So they go to the car auction in Auburn or one of those places, and they look at different cars that are going to be auctioned because they've been seized from drug dealers or repossessed by banks because people couldn't pay the monthly payments, or there's a whole number, or they have been abandoned by people, left on the road. It happens all the time. So then they're selling these cars at auction to get whatever they can. And you never know, unless you're a real expert, whether the car is good or bad, right? So you get the car for pennies on a dollar, and then you have to check it, and then you have to repair it and make it look nice, and then you sell it and you make a profit. Okay, that's one way. And then otherwise, people buy fixer-upper houses, and they fix it up and they sell it and they make money. So these are all the different ways of trying to control material energy to make money, and the money is used for sense gratification. So this is the first fall down. The second fall down is as you get good at flipping houses or repairing used cars and selling them or whatever, buying junk and then selling it, going to Value Village, buying things there, and then putting them on the internet and selling them. There are all kinds of ways people are trying to make money. And what for it? So they can spend it for sense gratification. And then when they get good at doing that, they become so attached to their possessions and their sense gratification that they completely forget about Krishna. So, therefore it says, but by the strength of Krishna consciousness, one can control the material senses, the mind, and the intelligence. One may not give up work, and prescribed duties all of a sudden. But by gradual developing Krishna consciousness, one can be situated in a transcendental position without being influenced by the material senses and the mind, by steady intelligence directed toward one's pure identity. This is the sum total of this chapter, meaning third chapter. In the immature stage of material existence, philosophical speculations and artificial attempts to control the senses by the so-called practice of yogic postures can never help a man towards spiritual life. He must be trained in Krishna consciousness by higher intelligence. So, okay, so you have, again, this is explaining the desire for overlording, which is the number one weakness of the heart, or disease of the heart. So that's a very interesting point that Prabhupada makes in this purport. And then the other really important point, as we already discussed, is you must accept some authority, right, in life, whether it's the mundane speculators or whether it's Krishna. And from that point on, you begin to learn. So children are forced to accept the authority of a teacher, and the parents don't vet the teacher's lifestyle. And therefore, they're putting the kids at risk by putting them under the control of a teacher who has the authority vested in them by the mundane school system to be some kind of authority in the eye of the children. And then they have their books, their textbooks, that give the illusion that they are teaching you the truth, or teaching you facts. See, the whole thing is a hoax, because what they're teaching is that the goal of life is sense gratification, and to have sense gratification you have to have money, and to have money you have to pass all these tests and get some degrees, and then the rest of your life you merrily go along trying to overlord material nature and exploit material nature and people to make profit, and with that profit you buy more and more sense gratificatory gadgets like houses and cars and boats and cell phones and security systems and this thing and that thing, and taking vacations and so forth. Okay, so these are some important points. Another very important point is whatever is said in the Vedas, and whatever is said in the Srimad Bhagvatam by Sukadeva Goswami is supported by the Vedas. It's not that Vedas say something and Srimad Bhagavatam, spoken by Sukadeva Goswami, says something else. No. So Prabhupada gives the Upanishadic support of what is being explained in this chapter 2 of Canto 2 about the cosmology of the universe and so many other subjects that are being explained here. Okay, so then the common man follows the authority. So Prabhupada says, the common man cannot argue about what is beyond the sky or beyond the universe. He must accept the versions of the Vedas as they are understood by the authorized disciplic succession. Well, this point is contested by the modern speculators. They say, oh, the Vedas, they are mythology. Well, right away, they write it off as being something not real. They call it mythology, just like there's Greek mythology. And so they said that there's also the Veda mythology. See? So this is the great downfall of Western culture. They declare the Vedas to be mythology. And this is what they're teaching kids in India, and they're teaching kids in the Western world, that Vedas are mythology. You don't have to it's not scientific. It's not proven fact. But here Prabhupada says that the Vedas are the truth, and the best way of knowing the knowledge contained in and accepting it as a priori truth is the best way of knowing the knowledge contained in the Vedas. It is not a thing to be understood by one's erudite scholarship or by fashionable interpretations of modern scholars. So the Vedas have to be accepted as authority, just like kids today are taught to accept what scientists say as authority, or what the teacher says and the textbook that they have says as authority. So the common man must accept the versions of the Vedas as they are understood by the authorized disciplic succession. In the Bhagavad Gita, also the same process of understanding the Gita is stated in the 4th chapter. Tat vidi paripatena paripasnena sevaya upadeksyami te jnanam jnaninas tattvadarshanaha. One must learn the truth by approaching a bona fide spiritual master with humility and submissiveness, and ask significant questions of the spiritual master and offer service. Then the spiritual master can impart knowledge unto you, because the pure devotees are seeing the truth always. And then it says, the next verse is also very important, which says, let me just see that. Yajyadvana punar mohan evam yasya sipandava yena bhutani sesani drakshasya atmani atomayi. Having obtained real knowledge from a self-realized soul, you will never fall again into such illusion. What is the illusion? Thinking I am this body, thinking that dominating material nature in order to secure sense gratification, money for sense gratification is the purpose of life. So one becomes free from that illusion of I am this body and sense gratification is my goal in life. So when you obtain real knowledge from a self-realized soul, you will never fall again into such illusion. For by this knowledge you will see that all living beings are but part of the Supreme, or in other words, that they are mine. Yes, we are all part and parcel of Krishna. We have to understand that with our intelligence. So this is very deeply explained in the 1st canto, 2nd chapter, verse number 11. And that's a very, and then also in the 1st canto, 1st chapter, 2nd verse. So when we accept with our intelligence that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the source of everything, then by that understanding alone, you become transcendentally situated, beyond impersonal Brahman, beyond the attempt to master yoga siddhis, beyond trying to be elevated to heavenly planets by ritual performances or by worship of demigods. So these are the pitfalls on the path of devotional service. Number one, trying to be elevated, the karma khandas, trying to be elevated to higher planets by ritual performances. Number two is jnana khanda, and that is to understand what is sat and what is asat, and try to merge into the impersonal Brahman effulgence by doing a process called neti, just rejecting everything in the material world, including Krishna's incarnation, including so many things, including personal existence in the spiritual world, Vaikuntha planets and so forth, and trying to merge into the impersonal Brahman. And number three, first is karma kanda, second is jnana kanda, third is upasana kanda, worshipping demigods in order to be elevated to the heavenly planets. And number four is Krishna consciousness, worshipping Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So the first three are actually dead ends that lead to remaining in the material world. because there's imperfect knowledge. But when we come to worshiping Krishna, knowing that we're part and parcel of Krishna, and that we're eternal, we're never born, we never die, and that our constitutional position, being part and parcel of Krishna, is to serve Krishna. And we can never be equal to or greater than Krishna. So when those realizations come into the mind and we're convinced of them, then we become liberated, even in this world, and we engage in full devotional service. Or as it says in the 8th chapter, let's see what that says there. In the 8th chapter, verse number 1 second. Okay, I'm not finding it, so let me come back to that point. Okay, it's not in the 8th chapter. Oh yeah. Ananya cheta satatam yomam smarati nitya saha tashyaham sulabha partha nitya yuktasya yogina. For one who always remembers me without deviation, I am easy to obtain, O son of Prita, because of his constant engagement in devotional service. So that is the realization that comes from, after that whole list of things that I said are necessary to be convinced of. And then Prabhupada says, this verse especially described, this is the 8th chapter, 14th verse. This verse especially describes the final destination attained by the unalloyed devotees who serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead in Bhakti Yoga. Previous verses have mentioned 4 different kinds of devotees: the distressed, the inquisitive, those who seek material gain, and the speculative philosophers. Different processes of liberation have also been described: Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, and Hatha Yoga. The principles of these yoga systems have some bhakti added, but this verse particularly mentions pure bhakti yoga without any mixture of jnana, karma, or hatha. Or in other words, so we explained the karma kanda, jnana kanda, upasana kanda, and pure bhakti yoga, right? So the first 3 are there actually can be impediments to bhakti yoga. If there's an admixture of bhakti to those first 3, then one can, there's a possibility of progressively going through them and coming to bhakti yoga. But if there's no bhakti yoga, they're a waste of time, and it will just keep one engaged always in the material world. So, also, along with, there's also, the 4th thing, and that is trying to master the yoga siddhis, to be elevated, to have supernatural powers. That's also an impediment on the path of pure devotion. So, it says, a pure devotee does not desire promotion to heavenly planets, nor does he seek oneness with the Brahmajyoti, or salvation, or liberation from material entanglement. A pure devotee does not desire anything material. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, the pure devotee is called Niskama, which means he has no desire for self-interest. Perfect peace belongs to him alone, not to them who strive for personal gain. Whereas the Jnana Yogi, Karma Yogi, or Hatha Yogi has his own selfish interests. A perfect devotee has no desire other than to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, the Lord says that for anyone who is unflinchingly devoted to him, he is easy to obtain. A pure devotee always engages in devotional service to Krishna in one of his various features. Krishna has various plenary expansions and incarnations, such as Rama and Nrsimha, and a devotee can choose to fix his mind in loving service to any of these transcendental forms of the Supreme Lord. Such a devotee meets with none of the problems that plague the practitioners of other yogas. Bhakti yoga is very simple and pure and easy to perform. One can begin simply by chanting Hare Krishna. The Lord is merciful to all, but as we have already explained, he is especially inclined toward those who always serve him without deviation. The Lord helps devotees in various ways, as stated in the Vedas, Kathopanishad 1.2.23, Yam evaish savrinute tena labhyas tasyaisya atma vrinute tanam swam. One who is fully surrendered and engaged in the devotional service of the Supreme Lord can understand the Supreme Lord as he is. And as stated in Bhagavad Gita 10.10, Dadami buddhiyogam tam, the Lord gives such a devotee sufficient intelligence so that ultimately the devotee can attain him in his spiritual kingdom. The special qualification of the pure devotee is that he is always thinking of Krishna without deviation and without considering the time or place. There should be no impediments. He should be able to carry out his service anywhere and at any time. Some say that the devotee should remain in holy places like Vrindavana or some holy town where the Lord lived. But a pure devotee can live anywhere and create the atmosphere of Vrindavana by his devotional service. It was Sri Advaita who told Lord Chaitanya, "Wherever you are, O Lord, there is Vrindavan." As indicated by the words Satatam and Nitya Saha, which means always, regularly, or every day, a pure devotee constantly remembers Krishna and meditates upon him. These are the qualifications of the pure devotee for whom the Lord is most easily attainable. Bhakti Yoga is the system that the Gita recommends above all others. Generally, the Bhakti Yogis are engaged in 5 different ways. Santa Bhakta, engaged in devotional service and neutrality. Dasya Bhakta, engaged in devotional service as servant. Sakya Bhakta, engaged as friend. Vatsalya Bhakta, engaged as parent. And Madhurya Vasa, engaged as conjugal lover of the Supreme Lord. In any of these ways, the pure devotee is always constantly engaged in the transcendental loving service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and cannot forget the Supreme Lord, and so for him, the Lord is easily attained. A pure devotee cannot forget the Supreme Lord for a moment, and similarly, the Supreme Lord cannot forget his pure devotee for a moment. This is the great blessing of the Hare Krishna. This is the great blessing of the Krishna conscious process of chanting the Mahamantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Go to Premanandi Haribol. So that verse 814 is really very powerful verse. All glories to Prabhupada. Any questions?